We have guests and probably people who are following us online who may not know what has been happening in our church in the last couple of weeks. And so I want to give a short background. But before I give the background, I want to tell you something that I do in this church. One of the things I do is I facilitate a book discussion group called All Souls Reads. It is a discussion group focused on books that clarify and give you examples of overcoming oppression, no matter what it might be. That oppression is something we live with, and so we decided that's what we're going to do, how to overcome it. And so we have over 200 folks on our email list who receive notices of the books that we are reading each month, the second Sunday of each month from September to April. May, the second Sunday, is traditionally Mother's Day. And so we don't compete with mothers. We have our book discussion group on the third Sunday in May. But the second Sunday in May, second Sunday beginning in September, we start discussing books at 1:30 in Thoreau Lounge. As I said, over 200 people receive notices. We also have a notice out at the book table that letting people know this is the book we're reading this month. But we don't have that many people who come to discuss the book. I'm inviting you to come, maybe once or twice, but come and see and hear us discuss books that are about overcoming oppression. Throughout this little homily I'm going to give you, I will cite some books. Those books have either been read in our discussion group or they're about to be read this year. They're good books, folks. Unitarians consider reading a sacrament. So come on to All Souls Reads, the second Sunday of each month. Now, a little background on what I'm about to say. It seems that a member directly descended from the founder of this church spoke in the humanist service about her grandfather, the founder, and she spoke eloquently about his heart, and she gave us instructions on why we should believe that his heart overrode his actions, giving what she thought was a clearly distorted view of her grandfather and how important he was to Tulsa. Now, she gave that defense of her grandfather after she said some very hateful things that the grandfather had written. Now, ostensibly, she did that in order to show he wasn't perfect. As a matter of fact, she said, I don't really like the man, but I want you all to feel him, understand where he was coming from. He was a man of his times. And then this descendant, at the end of her homily, resigned from the church and said, see you later, bye. Church, I want to speak to a couple of things, not necessarily her because she's gone, but how we can take what she did as a teaching moment. I believe that I am called by God to speak the truth as I know it and to seek the truth with you in love. That's part of our covenant. If you are a member of this church, you understand that we are dwelling in peace. That is our covenant, to dwell in peace, to seek the truth in love and to help one another. I believe that what that descendant did broke the covenant. So it's well and good that she has said, see you later, bye. You can quote me on that. Where I am, church, is to say that some people are not going to be in the house. Some people are not going to be on the boat. But it's important for us to understand we should not abandon why we came here in the first place. We came here to do the justice, to love the mercy, and to walk humbly with each other, knowing that all of us are included in God's love. Now that means that even old tyrants who say horrible things are included in God's word. We don't expect, though, that tyrant's going to be on the boat or in the house, because they can't, because they are blocked. But we have to understand why they do what they do in order for us to understand them. We still pray for them, knowing that they're not going to be a part of our getting up good mornings. Now, I'm saying this, church, because I'm with you. I am your brother. I'm also a black man. And so you should feel very privileged that I'm telling you things that you need to hear. It would not be good for me to be outside of our sanctuary, thank you, talking about what we need to know. I'm here. I'm with you. I'm in the boat. I'm saying, come on, pull together. So listen to me. When we say the N-word, when white people say the N-word, I don't care if they're quoting, I don't care if they're using air quotes, I don't care if they say, ooh, this is horrible stuff I'm about to tell you. Don't do it. You don't do it because it's painful, church. You see, a long time ago, we were not, as people of color, considered human beings. We were called its. We were called chattel, just like a cow or a dog. And we were treated worse than a cow or a dog. Now, I'll tell you why in a second. But in the meantime, please understand that pain hasn't gone away. Now, don't tell me, get over it, Gerald. That was way back in the 19th century or 18th century or 17th century. It's a long time ago, Gerald. Get over it. It's okay. It's not like that, church. You see, when you're swimming in white supremacy, say it now, white supremacy, see, that's good. Because if you say it, you're not afraid of it. That's when you understand what we're dealing with. White supremacy is not as vulgar as a hooded Klansman. White supremacy can take that form, but white supremacy is more subtle than that. It says, this is the standard. This is the standard. And everything that is not like this, that is less than. That means it's inferior. And so when you say something is wrong with black people and use the N-word to emphasize that, that is a racist idea. And a racist idea is not good to carry forward. Even if you're quoting, it's not good to carry the idea forward. So let's talk about racist ideas. From a book called Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram, middle initial X, last name Kende, which won the 2016 National Book Award. From that book, Dr. Kende tells us about racist ideas, their beginning and what they mean. He lets us know that most of us have heard that the way this racism begins, it starts with ignorance and hate, and then that moves into racist ideas, and then that goes into a discriminatory act, discrimination. You can't drink from this water fountain, you can't come in this restaurant, you can't sit with us in this church. All of that discrimination, it starts with ignorance and hate. He says from doing the research, he found out it's just the opposite. Discrimination and the racist discrimination is the start of it. And then that goes to a racist idea to back up the discrimination that results in ignorance and hate. Interesting, isn't it? Read the book. September is going to be our first book we read. You can get ahead of that. Read it now this summer. Stamped from the Beginning. Stamped from the Beginning is a quote that Senator Jefferson Davis, before he was president of the Confederacy, he was a U.S. senator from Mississippi, and on the Senate floor in 1860, He railed against a bill that was introduced to educate black people. He said, we are not throwing our money away trying to educate those black people. They're just different. They were stamped from the beginning, inferior to us. And so he used that as his title, stamped from the beginning. Now let's go a little bit deeper into this. Why would someone start with discrimination? They start with discrimination, according to Dr. Kende, because they have an economic, political, or cultural self-interest. So if you have an economic, political, and or cultural self-interest, you want to make sure that self-interest is heard, met, and used. And then you come up with the racist idea to make sure of that. So let's go back to 1921. A flourishing Greenwood area, Black Wall Street, hotels, entertainment centers, businesses, banks, all of that's going on Greenwood. Now, it was looked at with envy. It was looked at, well, I want that. You know where Greenwood is. Some of you all who are not in Tulsa may not know, but it's now, we're warring because it's called downtown now. I'm the chair of the Greenwood Neighborhood Association. We are putting up signs noting the boundaries of Greenwood, historic Greenwood area. And those boundaries are Archer on the south, Pine on the north, Cincinnati, AKA Martin Luther King, on the west, and Lansing on the east. That's the historic boundaries of the Greenwood district. So we were about to put our sign up on Archer and Greenwood, letting people know you're entering the Greenwood Historic District. And we were told by the city of Tulsa, oh no, that's downtown. You can't put your sign up there. Now we're working on getting that change. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But that's part of the self-interest. I'm trying to tell you, church, in 1921, there was economic and political self-interest on getting that area. Getting that area. So what do? How do we get that area? We write editorials talking about bad N-words. That's what the grandfather did. 3 days after the massacre. 3 days after the massacre, that's one of the things the descendant took umbrage with. It wasn't a massacre, but because there were some white people who were killed. Yeah, some of those black folks defending their homes did, in fact, kill some. Not very many, but they did, in fact, kill some. And so, therefore, she said it wasn't a massacre. Excuse me, the whole district was burned down. Houses were burned, if they could be burned. People were looted from their homes. The robbers, as some of the descendants call it, robbers came in and took the goods that we had. Businesses were burned. Airplanes dropped bombs down on the district. That's fact. And that was a massacre because when you even up the death toll, black folks lost that round. So here we are. Because it was seen as a lucrative place to go, self-interest said we gotta have a racist idea to back that up. And so here comes, 3 days after the massacre, here comes this editorial from the founder of this church and the editor of the Tulsa Tribune talking about bad N-words and how they're lower than low. Can't get him back. Give him their booze and the dope and look what they'll do. This is 3 days after the massacre. But that justifies the discrimination. Right? And so when you read something like that, the pain that goes through anybody with any kind of a heart who says, how could you do that? To show that, oh, he was a horrible person. It's just like if I was wearing this hood. You would be still looking at the hood, even though what I'm saying, has something to say. You wouldn't be thinking and listening to that. You're looking at the hood. And folks were hurt from that. And they walked out. Some people cried because they said, this is horrible. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about, she didn't do it, it was her grandfather. Excuse me, the words hurt. I grew up hearing sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt me. I used to say that because I got called all kinds of names. And my parents told me that so that I would be able to defend myself with that inside, saying, okay, that's not hurting me. They can call me anything they want to. I'm okay. Because my parents told me sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt me. But as I grew older, I understood, yes, they do. Words hurt. And words even said like that hurt. And that's breaking the covenant. The covenant said we'll seek the truth in love. We won't hurt one another. We'll help one another. We're not going to hurt one another. So you broke the covenant. So I'm saying, church, it's important for us to be mindful and understand you're dealing with people who have suffered for centuries under an ideology of white supremacy that is going on and on and on and on. And it may be subtle, it may not be a hood, but it's still going on. And I don't believe that's the way we're supposed to be, especially because they're all lies. You know, whenever you say part of a group or a group is inferior, that's wrong. We're all, okay, individually, no, I'm not equal to Warren Buffett. I know that. I know that. But as a group, as white people and black people, yeah, we are. I mean, you take the skin away and you go down deep and look at the blood and all of that. You don't know what's black and what's white. You don't know. So the issue is, come on, let's quit thinking like that. Let's quit thinking with this supremacy thing. One of the things that I learned, and I know my wife told me this morning, be brief. But I got to tell you two stories, and then I'm going to sit down. And there's, all right, good. I heard Barbara back here telling me I got time. All right. All right, so here's this story. When this was going on, at the June 25, I was in New Orleans along with Barbara and Marlon and Yadini and many others from this church. We were all in New Orleans at our General Assembly. And that assembly was a wonderful General Assembly. We did a couple of great things. One of them was we reaffirmed that we're going to get rid of white supremacy. We're going to call it out, and we're going to name it, and we're going to say, let's not do it that way. We're going to get rid of it and get people talking about it, right? That's one of the good things that came out of that. But after the GA, my family and I journeyed to a plantation. It's called the Whitney Plantation. And I would encourage everyone who is in the area of Baton Rouge to find Google Maps or whatever and get there and go see the Whitney Plantation. This is a place that was created by a very wealthy and informed white man from the South who said, I'm sick and tired of looking at people making money with these plantation tours where they go to the big house and they marvel at the architecture, and they marvel at the china, and they marvel at all of this, and they just completely ignore that there was an industry going on built on human beings, either picking cotton or chopping sugar cane, right there in Louisiana. And he said, no one mentions that. They act as if the big house just sprung up. They don't talk about why the big house was there, who lived in the big house, and who didn't live in the big house. And so this very wealthy Southern gentleman said, I'm going to do something about that. So he bought a plantation with the big house. And he began to move in the quarters where enslaved people lived. And he brought history out. And he told a story. And he got folks to buy in on this, and now they're tours. You can go through this thing and you can see not only where people lived, but what they did, how they lived, what food they ate, and then you go to the big house. But you go in through the back door. You don't go in through the front door. You go in through the back door, and you go where the enslaved people went. And the stairs, you go up, and then you find out so much interesting history that is relevant today. I won't give you the whole thing because it's really enlightening, and I want you to go see it, right? But one of the things that I took away from that was our tour guide, named Susan, was a white woman. She said, I took this tour and I said, I got to do something more. And so she became a tour guide. She and I talked briefly about certain things, and I mentioned this book. Every time I say book, know that All Souls Reads has read it. I mentioned this book by Edward E. Baptist, like the denomination, Baptist, not Baptiste, Baptist. And Dr. Baptist wrote a book called The Half Has Never Been Told. And I said that to her, and she jumped up. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. She said, oh my goodness, I've read that book 3 times. I have ordered that book, and we can't keep it in our gift shop because people are getting it off the shelves. It tells the whole story, the true story of slavery in the United States. It's an essential read. It's an essential read. The Half Has Never Been Told. That comes from the fact that the book's, the author did research, because after, I know, but this is, you got to hear this. During the Depression, when we were trying to find work, the WPA and all like that, the writers group was created by Roosevelt, right? These folks went into the South and talked to either folks who had been enslaved or got the records of people who had been enslaved. And these people from the WPA wrote these texts, these wonderful texts of what it was to live in those days and what happened to them. They went to warehouses in Washington, D.C., where they are there today, right? Baptist understood that. He went into that warehouse and he began to read. He did research on that. He went to New Orleans because New Orleans was the slave capital. That's where folks were auctioned. He found out that New Orleans still has those records. And so he went through all of those records and he created stories based on the narratives of folks who had lived it and the records that showed, yes, they're telling the truth. All of this, he did the research and he wrote this book. The Half Has Never Been Told comes from a quote that one of these WPA writers talking to this former enslaved person, and at the end of their first visit, the person writing was just blown away with all of this information. And he said he was so thankful to be able to talk to him about this. And the old gentleman looked at him and said, son, the half has never been told. And so he chose to put that as his title. In that book, we find out what slavery did to people. You realize how folks were hugely brutalized. And you realize that these are human beings who they could have easily just ran away, which they did, or fought back, which they did, or succumbed and died, which they did. All of this you realize. And one of the other things I spoke with this tour guide about was the fact that she never once said slave. She always said enslaved person or enslaved people. She did this because we need to understand they were people. They were human beings. And you can't do that to human beings. But still we rise, church. No one is angry. There's not going to be all black folks jump up one day and kill white people. That's not going to happen because that was never the intent. The intent is to get y'all awake, to quit being into this fool notion that we are less than you. And once you start understanding that and you get away from white supremacy, you are enlightened. You are given a better way of looking at stuff. The end of the tour, there is a billboard that Susan said, this is the plantation's mission statement. And we put it on a billboard. And so when you're driving off the grounds, this huge billboard says, freedom, education, family, pass it on. That's the mission statement. Well, I believe that. Freedom. Freedom means no oppression. Education, because now you can go and follow that dream. You can get farther than you want to follow. And family, because that's the first institution. And the family has to be supportive and it has to be protected. Those are the kinds of values that all of us want. All of us want that. Freedom, education, and family. But we want it in the right way. Not to exclude others, but to be inclusive. So the other good thing that happened at that GA was Brian Stevenson. And Brian Stevenson was the Ware lecturer. And he gave a beautiful testimony that is found in his book, Just Mercy. Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. And Brian Stevenson helps people who are unfairly put on death row get off death row. And you can imagine most of those folks in the South who are on death row are African American, and they were unfairly put on death row, whether it was through their age, or someone as young as 14 years of age, or as just innocent, because just completely he wasn't even there. And then we had all these black people testifying that this man wasn't even close to the scene, and still this man is on death row. All of these unjust things. Brian Stevenson's group, the Equal Justice Initiative, is working to get people off death row. But he had a word to say about us, because we as Unitarian Universalists are on the tip of the spear. You know that. If you don't know it, most folks are looking at us as if we are. We are the ones who are leading, because we're daring to fight against this water that we're swimming in. You know, the water and the fish, and you ask the fish, how's the water? And the fish says, what water? You know, that's the white supremacy, right? That we're swimming in this stuff. We're swimming in it. But we as Unitarian Universalists are on the tip trying to drain the swamp, get rid of this stuff. We don't want that kind of water. And we want to have that clear living water. Come on, I'm about to preach. Look out. We do want the living water. I felt it. You know, I'm called, y'all. I'm called. I'm just up here saying what God says I need to say. But we are called to testify to the living water that we need. We need that living water, not that swamp water that we're swimming in. So Brian Stevenson he said a lot of things, but I'm going to just say a couple for you. He said, right now, we have to get proximate. Proximate. That means you got to show up, church. You got to be there. You can't sit back at home, watch it on TV, look at a YouTube video. You got to be there, church. Be present. You got 2 opportunities right this week to be there. You got to show up. Tomorrow at the Central Library, Rilla Askew, who was an Oklahoman, grew up near Bartlesville, and she wrote, what was that, Fire in Beulah? She wrote that, and that was a novel based on the 21 Race Massacre. But she also wrote a new book called Most American, Memoir of from a Wounded Place, the Notes from a Wounded Place. And that's her new nonfiction, the only nonfiction she's written. And she's speaking from a wounded place. She is Choctaw, and she said, I'm Choctaw, but I never really acted as if I was Choctaw, embraced that. She said, I didn't even know about the race massacre growing up in Bartlesville, didn't even know about it till I was in graduate school in New York and read about it. And she said, it changed my life. Because I said, how could I not know anything about this? So she is in a wounded place, and she has notes from that, but it's about the people who we discount, the Native Americans, the people of color, because they are different. And remember, it's not because folks they're ignorant and hateful. That's not why. Remember, it goes back to political, economic, or cultural self-interest. And then you justify it with all the racist ideas. All right, so she is now breaking through with that. She's getting new water. She's swimming in good water, and she's going to be at the Central Library tomorrow. Show up. Wednesday, at the Greenwood Cultural Center, we have an opportunity to hear a discussion on Ralph Ellison's book, Ralph Ellison's essay, about what America would look like without black people, right? And I'm going to give you just a little bit of that, because Reverend Barbara Prose, is going to read something for you to hear. Now, that's at the Greenwood Cultural Center on Wednesday at 6:30, discussion groups about this topic. What would America look like without the Negro?
Democracy and the Negro. Without the presence of blacks, our political history would have been otherwise. No slave economy, no civil war, no violent destruction of the Reconstruction, no KKK, and no Jim Crow system. And without the disenfranchisement of black Americans and the manipulation of racial fears and prejudices, the disproportionate impact of white Southern politicians upon our domestic and foreign policies would have been impossible. Indeed, it's almost impossible to conceive of what our political system would have become without the snarl of forces, cultural, racial, and religious, that make our nation what it is today. Absent, too, would be the need for that tragic knowledge which we try ceaselessly to evade, that the true subject of democracy is not simply material well-being, but the extension of the democratic process in the direction of perfecting itself. And that the most obvious test and clue to that perfection is the inclusion, not assimilation, of the black man. Since the beginning of the nation, white Americans have suffered from a deep inner uncertainty as to who they really are. One of the ways that has been used to simplify the answer has been to seize upon the presence of black Americans and use them as a marker, a symbol of limits, a metaphor for the outsider. Many whites could look at the social position of blacks and feel that color formed an easy and reliable gauge for determining to what extent one was or was not American. Perhaps that is why one of the first epithets that many European immigrants learned when they got off the boat was the term, the N-word. And it made them feel instantly American. But this is tricky magic. Despite his racial difference and social status, something indisputably American about Negroes not only raised doubts about the white man's value system, but aroused the troubling suspicion that whatever else the true American is, he is also somehow black. A final word on the Negro's contributions. Materially, psychologically, and culturally, part of the nation's heritage is Negro American, and whatever it becomes will be shaped in part by the Negro's presence, which is fortunate, for today it is the black American who puts pressure upon the nation to live up to its ideals. It is he who gives creative tension to our struggle for justice and for the elimination of those factors, social and psychological, which make for slums and shaky suburban communities. It is he who insists that we purify the American language by demanding that there be a closer correlation between the meaning of words and our actions. Without the black American, something irrepressibly hopeful and creative would go out of the American spirit. And the nation might well succumb to the moral slobism that has ever threatened its existence from within.
Thank you. That was Ralph Ellison in Oklahoma. From Oklahoma City, Ralph Ellison. Show up Wednesday at the Greenwood Culture Center. Now I'm telling you to do all this. I won't be here next week. I'm going to Jamaica. Yes, I am. I'm going to Jamaica because I want to go somewhere where I can feel the love, unprompted. Feel the breeze that says you are somebody. Because I need to be refreshed now and then, church. It's hard work out here being hopeful. And you need now and then to get that resurrection feeling. You need now and then to say, of course. When I was in the second grade, Miss Allen, our music teacher at Booker Washington Elementary School in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, taught us lift every voice and sing. And there's a refrain in there that says, sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun. Let us move on till victory is won. Amen. Yeah.
You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256 or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed.
and be a blessing.